Okay, this is the most craziest Between the Studs I think we have ever tried to do. We have a band behind us, and Lonnie's even in the band, which is even stranger. Gersh is back there on the keyboard. Steve's on the drums going there. We got Brynn over on the guitar.
Tony, we have Legos. I got Frank Lloyd Wright's Falling Water here that Tony had me put together at 4 o'clock this morning. I don't know why, but
I know you had the boys do that. You didn't, but that's okay.
I'll take credit though.
Yes.
Look at this. Look what I built. The Guggenheim. This is an actual building, though.
Yeah, the Guggenheim, that's okay.
Well, I've got the Robbie house here, so this is another Frank Lloyd Wright Prairie style to a T.
Gorgeous.
How great are all these styles? I have the White House here. I don't know how we're going to pair architectural styles and music.
Music and a band? I don't.
Modern Mesian. We've got some more Frank Lloyd Wright here.
Okay, Sherry, are we really going to pull this off? Wait, what are you doing?
I'm playing the ukulele.
No, Tony.
No, we don't understand.
It said
in the
no,
band.
no
Yeah, we got to start. You're not playing.
Oh, man.
Welcome to Between the Studs. We are Granite Ridge Builders, custom builders serving northern Indiana, northwest Ohio, and also parts of southern Michigan. We have been building custom homes for almost 2 decades, and we're really passionate about what we do. So join us today as we explore the processes, the trends, and also tips that characterize today's new home. Thanks for watching.
Welcome back to a really special edition of Between the Studs, something we've never tried before. We have formed a new band to help you understand a little bit about architecture and music. But before we do that, I need to do some introductions. Really good friend of mine, graduated from Concordia. I know, well, we both, maybe I did. Concordia High School. Mark Gersmehl has been in a band with Whiteheart for 30 years. Some of you might know him from that band itself. And Mark is going to be playing the keyboard for us and a lot of other things. Then I'd like to introduce his better half, Brynn Gersmehl. She was in a band called Rachel. And unfortunately, she's been with Mark for a long time. Then,
Which
of
makes
course,
her
some of you
clinically
might
ill.
know, our one special Granite Ridge employee, Steve Bauman, on the drums.
And if he looks familiar to you, it's probably because you saw his picture in the Fort Wayne Post Office on the wall.
Well, you've heard, if only walls could talk. They do, and it's music. And music is what makes you feel different about every building, even your own home. It's the music. We're going to try to mirror these two things together today. So you are not going to want to miss this show. Stay tuned.
Now guys, architecture dates back 11,000 years to the Neolithic period, and that's when Neanderthals started moving their way out of caves and started designing homes for themselves.
You know, it's believed that music may be as old as 50,000 years. And it's certainly an art, as you'll see today, that was discovered and practiced, and it's been that way for a long time.
And really, ever since architecture has been around, music and architect have been compared.
Yeah, it's like architecture pleases the eye and music pleases the ear. And it's been said that if architecture had movement, it would be heard.
Whoa, I like that saying. Did you make that one up?
Yeah.
Great architecture is like great music. It builds upon itself. You can actually see it raising up and going together to make a beautiful symphony.
And I think we're going to prove that today, aren't we?
Yes.
And it might not seem like it, but you really need to have an artistic mind to be able to do both architecture and music together.
And architecture is referred to frozen music, and music is referred to liquid architecture.
I like that saying the best. In fact, falling waters with the water going underneath the building, that
Perfect.
kind of makes more sense than anything. Now, let's do some architectural principles, okay? And then what we'll do is do those principles for music. So we'll start out with architectural principles. First one we're going to do is, it's got to be rhythm. Now, when I say rhythm, I kind of think architecturally, it's continuity, similarity, a pattern, maybe in the front elevation.
Right, so on that front elevation, we put a lot of things on the facade of that. And there is a principle that you don't want to mix more than 5 things, because if you get 5 things, that rhythm, it's hard to pick up on that, right? So what are some of the things that we use in order to create some of those? I know we've got all of our favorites, I think.
I mean, I definitely think stone or siding, maybe a little shutter or something like that.
Metal roof. Putting another
metal roof.
thing in there.
Yep, and metal roof on gables. You can create 3 gables on a roof pitch that maybe adds to that rhythm.
Yeah.
Columns. I think of columns. I think of a pattern.
Yeah.
For example, in the front
Well,
porch.
my favorite of all time, of course, is still fenestration. So the fenestration of the
Every
windows
show.
would be a definite rhythm there.
Yeah, and they call that sometimes like 5-rank, 6-rank windows, and you're right, that definitely seems a continuity.
And then we can't forget about dormers and peaks on the front of the house.
There you
Those
go.
all add up
Row
to
of dormers.
visual drumbeat, essentially. Now, how does that relate to music, Mark?
So there's an example of rhythm right there.
Beautiful, yeah.
A beautiful example of, and one of our favorite guys, Frank Lloyd, has brought all that all around. But in music, we talk about space, like you're telling the gable draws the eye up, and then the rhythm will be the foundation. But it's something predictable. Our ears need to hear things repeated, and that's what wonderful guys like this do. But you can start out, let's create some space.
I see the windows now.
Well, with Frank Lloyd Wright, he has clear story windows, and they look like that. They just take your eyes
Yeah.
across that. The rhythm is a really big part of both architecture and music.
Definitely.
This is very soothing, but I am a 90s rap girl. I'm gonna need,
We've got Uncle Steve over
I'm
there
gonna
for
need
you.
Steve to come in for me and give me a little something. Yeah,
There you go.
this is more my groove.
That's rhythm.
Another principle is textures. We use a lot of textures, especially on the outside of a home, where we start heavy, not heavy D. I said I was rap. I like 90s rap when we were talking the last one. Not heavy D in the boys, but heavy like stone on the bottom, and then we go to a lighter material like siding as we move up in a house.
Right, and in music, a lot of times when you record a song, it's kind of similar as it is in architecture. You start with, you lay down tracks, and then you build on that. And again, start with the heavy, or what looks heavy, like stone looks heavier than siding. Brick looks heavier than maybe wood or siding.
For us, by the way, foundations matter. In tracks, they matter. I am a huge fan of the Stud Show on foundations. Little did this musician know about foundations. Anyway, but I do know about musical foundation, and you are looking at it. I don't want to play without that guy. He's got to show up at every gig. But that's our foundation. And from there, it's like in classical recording technique. If that isn't right, we start over. And from then on, Lonnie is so true. Guitars get added. They get higher up. We get the electric crunch. That gets the weight. We get air out of these acoustic guitars. There are 10,000 waveforms inside that instrument. I have to work really hard to corral them all together in the right way, but that's the air on top. And that's why, just like your buildings that have great foundations and the ones that soar up to the sky and the gable pulls you up, there's our gable pulling us up.
Certainly one of the most important architectural and music principles is centered around harmony. Harmony is 2 or more things working together. You know, you could take 2 tomcats, you can tie them by the tail and throw them over the clothesline. You will have unity. They'll be together, but you will not have harmony.
Lonnie, where do you come up with these stories?
For all the cat lovers out there, that's L. Norris at graniteridgebuilders.com. Please put all of your emails towards
Okay,
him.
okay. I think I know where Lonnie means by this. So we got a house, right? And there's parts to the house. We've got a garage, we've got front doors, we've got porches. We also have different architectural styles. Floor plans can be the same way. When you walk through the house, you want to feel like things just flow in a very harmonious way, where you wouldn't want to walk into your front door and walk into the master bedroom, right? That's not going to be a good feeling when you walk through there. So I think I see what you mean by that.
And that's why we have 4 to 5 architectural draftsmen in our office to make sure that you do that right when you build with Granite Ridge.
Yeah, no tomcats tied by tails in our houses. But let's talk about music.
Lonnie, you are so not well.
harmony in music is when two or more notes are sung together, and it's beautiful if they're in the right chord. If you put a note in there that isn't in the right chord, it's horrible. And the same is so true in what they're talking about in the building of houses.
Okay, so we have two fantastic musicians. Sorry, Lonnie and Steve, I didn't mean to leave you out of that, but can you give us an example of harmony? The two of you, I mean, not Lonnie and Steve.
I'm closing my eyes so I can see all the things that you have done for me.
Wow.
That's impressive, yeah. That's good harmony.
We just have them play. Yeah. We can just sit back here. I'm good with that.
Yeah, we can't do that, is he? No.
Well, the great thing about harmony is, and if you think about the songs you love, and you're with your best friends, you're going down the road, you got it cranked, and when do you start singing? It's when you hit the chorus. Why? That's where all the harmony is. There's a thing in Nashville they say for country writers, they say, don't bore us, get to the chorus.
Wow.
And that's why, because everybody's going to be singing that chorus.
That makes sense.
Absolutely.
And don't forget to donate to your local animal.
Now, I am not musically inclined at all. In fact, I think Tony and I were both kicked out of the school choir.
He told us to hum.
Yeah, but these next two principles are right up my alley, more mathematics and proportion. And there's a lot that goes into the houses, but obviously a lot that goes into music too. So let's unpack some of that.
Well, we got to go way back in history. It started with Pythagoras, which anybody who's made it through junior high math knows of the Pythagorean theorem. That's his famous thing there. So Pythagoras found out that the Greek musical system could be expressed in a numerical way. Later, Plato came in and he expounded on how proportions play a huge part in music.
Yeah, now some of these proportions, we have, I guess, things that we follow to a T. You mentioned our architects. They know what looks pleasing to an eye, especially as you're on the first floor up to the second floor. There's columns, proportions with columns we have to follow. One of the most basic ones, and one of the ones that we hold true, is like with windows, rectangles always look better. So you always have 2 to 3, so 2 foot by 3 foot. So it's gonna be 2 foot wide, 3 foot long. Then you step from there. So then you can go to 3 by 5, you can go 5 by 8, and that also carries over to brick and tiles and floor planks, anything that's rectangle. Rectangle usually looks better to the human eye than like a square, and you definitely don't want to mix square and circle. We've seen that, yeah.
And when I think about proportions, sometimes I think about the front of a house. How much roof do you see? Some are so, you know, it's a small house and all you see is roof, or maybe you have a small house and you've got 5 gables on it, and it's just proportionally off because it's so top heavy.
And that goes right back into the music that they're going to be showing us about how there is a certain mathematics and proportions to it that is in conjunction with the way we do a house.
Yeah, it's interesting. Pythagoras is our founding father of music. You well said it. But he called it the music of the spheres. He believed that the planets were hung in the sky and vibrated to musical tones, which is a beautiful image, I think. But for music and pop music especially, we really end up in 4/4 rhythm. Most of everything that you hear has 4/4 rhythm to it. If you're big into waltzes, you can do 3/4. And so there are very few examples of anything that's outside of that, although Pink Floyd, being the daring band that they were, created a song. Does anybody know what it is? It's in 7/4 time. Money. So the next time you're in the car and you hear Money come on, you're at home. Start counting, man.
It's also the only time you hear a cash register.
So I went to school for architect and construction, and I learned a lot about Pythagoras. And you know, I had no clue up until today that not only did he have a tremendous impact on what we do every day, but also what these musicians do every day. I had no clue that he had that kind of an impact on the musicians and the music. But all boils back down to mathematics and proportions. I mean, this guy had it figured out.
The last architectural principle we're going to talk about is dynamics. Now, I definitely have some good examples, and when you think of dynamics, I think of sound first, but it really does play into architecture and the way we build our homes, and especially in design. So a lot of people will come to me and say, I really would love a bright blue color in my master bath, and they're looking at the color wheel and they pick this blue, and once they get it on the wall, it might be too bright, and that's when dynamics, it's very loud. You walk in and you're almost taken back, and so that's why having Granite Ridge and the designers and architects we work with, we do have a good idea of what is the right sort of feel for a space when it comes to colors and what you're picking. So that's a great example of how we play with dynamics in architecture.
Yeah, we've seen that in all kinds of houses. You've walked up to something and it was way too loud on one side or one texture, and so that's definitely a principle that we're playing around with. And musically, of course, I think back to my high school band days where I played trumpet. And of course, you've never heard a trumpet player say they've played too loud. And so they're always telling us to quiet it down, because we were playing way too loud for the rest of the group. And so musically, dynamics is a huge part.
Words like crescendo and decrescendo are important things because let's face it, it needs a phrase, a musical phrase, and even a line in architecture. It needs to go someplace. It needs to draw your eye. It needs to lead to a point that the architect or the musician wants you to pay attention to. So we have a little example. It's like, this is one of the most emotional singers I've ever worked with. And I've asked her to
or
go
lived
back.
with.
I asked her to go back to second grade and Miss Thrumper's class and to sing this little song in a way that she never would.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound. Okay, that's enough.
Yeah, it is enough. Okay, so that is an example of everything being lovely. That's not the way we bleed.
Let's add some dynamics. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see.
That evokes a much better emotion in me than the mental
Goosebumps.
picture of Izzy playing trumpet in high
I like that
school.
better too.
Yeah.
Let's try to give our audience some similarities between some major buildings, architectural styles that you guys probably know. And just remember this, interpretation of the music and the architecture is your own. It's how it makes you feel. This is what we came up with. This is how we feel on some major buildings. For example, Falling Waters. Luckily, I had a chance to go there and see it, and it moved me in so many different ways. The water probably was the most, but the base, the foundation, here's a picture of it.
Just looking at a picture of that house, the melody of that house is the water flowing underneath it. What a beautiful thing it is to even hear that in that place.
One of the big things that I like in architectural styles that really can get your emotion going is the Sydney Opera House.
Oh.
That is one that just has such a unique look and feel to it. And kind of with me, I remember seeing it every single year on New Year's Eve. They always show the fireworks going above that. And it just really involves an emotion, and I can hear the music behind it.
Sailing takes me away to where I've always heard it could be.
You know, I really love the Disney's concert hall, the Opera House in California. You see the picture here with all of that stainless metal work, and I think it can create a couple different things in music. I hear a lot of symbols with that stainless, but you have the arched curves, so there's a lot of different ways I can see music being played with this house.
We deal with shapes in music all the time. And it's also color that comes off of that building. But the amazing thing is, as beautiful as it is on the outside and different, It's supposedly fantastic on the inside. That's when music and art really go together.
The pillars in Hampi, this is in India, this is remarkable. 56 pillars made of granite. They're all the same size, same height, same width, but they play 7 different keys or notes.
Wow.
So you tap it, it's like bells ringing.
I'm thinking about the Guggenheim Museum in Manhattan, New York, built in the 1950s. Frank Lloyd Wright had his hand in that thing. But it's a spiral building or cyclical building. I think maybe a merry-go-round, I don't know. Or the song, You'll Go Round in Circles, I don't know. What do you think, Mark?
I hear, meet George Judson, the old cartoon. That's an odd building. I've gone in there and looked at pictures, and I feel like I'm kind of doing this the whole time. But it's cool looking. It's a spaceship that landed upside down.
And how about the presidential White House? It goes without saying how beautiful this building is. Neoclassical style with all those columns. It just speaks without even having to hear a word.
Stand up.
Need we say more?
Yep.
Now, how about the Robbie House in Chicago, right? That was Frank Lloyd Wright, and he created what was considered the first American architectural style, the prairie style. And you've got the chimney coming up towards the middle, and then long horizontal lines coming out from there, long cantilevers. He really wanted to draw your eyes outward.
I think architecture is a space around you, and music is a space within you. And when you look at that place, boy, do you feel the space around you.
Well said.
Speaking of the space within you, the Notre Dame Cathedral, that's the kind of, talk about evoking an emotion within you. That's the kind of place that you want to go visit within your lifetime. There aren't a lot of places on my bucket list. That would be one. Mm-hmm. The detail, the attention to detail in that, and the, what's the word I want to say, the massiveness?
Majesty?
The majesty, that's a good, yeah. There's a lot of emotion evoked there.
Boy, I'm with you. I've been there, and I will never forget it. And the one thing that always struck me about it is you look at that very front of it, and all our eyes go to that rose window. In our world, it's the singer that carries the song. The singer is our rose window.
When I went to go visit the Parthenon, I had a bunch of students with me, and I remember sitting out on the lawn and just staring at the architecture, and just the reflection of Greek architecture being brought here was something that was just really majestic, a really big sense of history, just kind of all the different types of architecture through the years is really just a really beautiful night.
We actually have one of those in our city. Brynn has been in it many times. How does it make you feel?
It's very echoey. But there's a giant statue of Athena, and I guess it's replicated from the original. It's kind of garish, actually, but it is big steps up to the front, and it just feels big and awe-inspiring.
Let's talk about the Chrysler Building in Manhattan, New York. You know it from its signature setbacks. It followed the 1916 code of building where it had to have those stepbacks. It was named for one of the original tenants. And that building is just iconic. It's one of the staples of New York. And for me, that kind of reminds me of like a Frank Sinatra style feel of music.
Oh yeah, I can see what it's shiny. Frank was shiny. Yeah, it's boy, doesn't it typify New York?
Oh yeah.
I mean, just that building comes in up to your mind and in your space when you look at it, and it's what a proud, beautiful building.
So those are some amazing houses we got to see. The architectural style and the music just pair well. So let's do this. Let's try to take a particular architectural style and define how that music and that architectural style makes you feel.
One big one is Gothic, and there's a lot of different components to Gothic, but one of them is the collegiate Gothic. And when you're hearing that, you're seeing the big stone buildings, you're walking around the campus, you're seeing the specialty roofs that are on there, you're seeing more ornate at the top of it. It's a gorgeous
And a
style.
lot of concrete. That's what I think of.
You know what else? I'm not hearing this song. I'm hearing the Fighting Irish.
And then there's Carpenter Gothic. Think of the homes with the big front porches, the arched windows, the steep roofs, a lot of times a slate shingle. On
Birch board?
Stained glass.
Stained glass is amazing.
Interesting grid patterns on a lot of those when it comes to the Gothic.
Now, this is beautiful music, but Mark, I hate to disagree. I'm not sure that this is the song I think of.
I don't mind disagreeing on this one because here's what I think of. Da-na-na-na. Da-na-na-na.
Oh, you're talking to that.
Uh-huh. Oh, I messed up. It's the Addams Family.
The Addams Family. There we go.
Okay, now let's get back down to reality and more Gothic style. There is also a church Gothic style that goes into it, where you're talking about those really tall spears. You're talking about reaching up into the heavens. You're talking about the true big stained glass and the traceries in those. That's another Gothic style.
I think about walking into one of those type of amazing ribbed arches. You look up and you just can't feel you feel majestic.
We've had the luxury of touring several of them here in Fort Wayne itself, and we have a lot of great examples of that.
What I love about it is bird's eye view. It's shaped like a cross.
Right. Oh, yeah.
Now, as much as I like the Gothic style, it does feel a little, I don't know, too spacious. Let's go the opposite direction. Let's talk about Craftsman. When I think about Craftsman, it feels very comfortable, and it just feels secure while I'm sitting in one of those homes.
Yeah, look, you're gonna see a ton of interior woodwork, built-in shelving. You're gonna have these beautiful, spacious porches, overhanging eaves, exposed rafter tails, and it's all done. It's called Craftsman style for a reason, because the highest grade of workmanship goes into these houses.
Right. Now you see a lot of these examples around town, because in the 20s and through the 40s, Sears sold a lot of these, like 4-square homes that had that Craftsman flair. So you can drive down Anthony Boulevard and you can pick out a lot of these. But we're seeing a resurgence with what we call modern Craftsman.
Absolutely. I love the warm colors that you'll see. And you have a lot of decoration on the front of these houses is really how we've kind of depicted the style. You have some shake style, you have brackets usually, just all sorts of things that really make you feel warm and inviting. It's a very inviting style.
It's comfort. It's almost all about family, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Cozy
Mark.
and timeless.
Yeah, timeless. Mark, how does it make you feel, like when you mention Craftsman styles?
Song comes to mind.
Okay.
Boy, the way Glenn Miller played.
Songs that made the hit parade.
Guys like us, we had it made.
Those were the days. And you knew you wanted.
I gotta stop.
I didn't see that one coming.
No, I will say that. Doesn't that make you feel like that's a brand new feeling on Craftsman style?
I married her anyway.
Okay, I think we're running out of time. So Kayla, would you go ahead and close for us?
Absolutely. Thank you all so much for joining us today. If you'd like to learn a little bit more about who we are, what we do, and why we do what we do so well, please pick up the phone and give us a call. Visit our website, or even better yet, please come in our front door. We'd love to talk to you all about architectural styles and building your next home.
Okay, I think we can do a lot more of these shows.
Can we just sit here for like a half hour and just listen to some music?
Yeah.
What about the big question between brick and stone? Which one is actually supposed to be perceived as
It's a
heavier?
good question.
Are you going to answer?
You can't answer that. That's tricky.